Hi, this is the next video on assessment of students, formative and summative assessment. So in this video, we're going to talk about the alignment of the activities and assessment with the objectives, and we're going to explain formative and summative assessment. So remember, we've talked about the four curricular components and how they all work together: your objectives, your methods, your materials, and your assessment. And so we're going to see what that looks like in alignment. So just a little bit of review. We've talked about the fact that objectives have to be SMART. They should be specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. And you can see this example at the end of the lesson. Students will be able to explain the main types of government. It is specific in what I want them to do, explain the main types of government. It is measurable in the fact that I use the word explain. So that could be in a writing assignment, that could be in a speech they give. It is attainable if it is in the right grade level in social studies and government. It is relevant, again, if it is in a certain lesson as far as social studies or government. And it is time-bound. At the end of the lesson, students will know how to do it. And then just a quick review of Bloom's taxonomy as well, in that you can see the various levels of Bloom's taxonomy, and you should remember that your objectives should be at different levels so that you can help your students to expand their thinking and their learning skills. And you should have also watched a little bit about universal design for learning. Hopefully you were able to understand that in that process, you should always give multiple means of engagement, multiple means of representation, and multiple means of action and expression. Several ways for the students to get involved with the knowledge or with the information, several ways for them to learn the information, and then several ways for them to express what they have learned. So we've got our objectives laid out, and then what are some other methods? Universal design for learning is one method of teaching, but there are so many different methods out there. Let's talk about alignment. What does alignment mean? Alignment means that the objective, the teaching, the activities are all asking the students the same thing. They're all trying to get them to do the same thing so that the assessment at the end checks to see if they were able to do the action. So my objective was, at the end of the lesson, students will be able to explain an idea of universal design for learning and apply it to their teaching. And then in my teaching, I had you watch a video about universal design for learning. The activity was that you had to write a sentence about it and you had to use it in your lesson plan. And then my assessment was that I read and assessed the lessons that you created using universal design for learning. It was all aligned. I asked you to understand and explain universal design for learning and apply it to your teaching, and then there was an activity that actually asked you to do that. So when it is not aligned, what does it look like? So say that I have the same objective, and then my teaching is, I still have you watch a video. An activity is that you play Kahoot, matching words associated with UDL, and the assessment is your Kahoot scores. I love gamifications, I love Kahoot, but you have to make sure that it is aligned. My objective was that you would explain an idea from universal design for learning, and Kahoot is having you match the words associated with universal design for learning. So I could switch my activity in Kahoot and make it align, but because I'm asking you to match words instead of actually explain an idea, the activity does not align with the objective or the assessment. I introduced this definition of assessment in the first video, but just to see it again, assessment is just a wide variety of methods and tools that we use to evaluate students and their progress and their learning. We're going to talk more specifically about the difference between formative assessment and summative assessment. So which ones of these are forms of assessment? Quizzes, projects, questions, thumbs up, thumbs down, parking lot, exit tickets. I want you to take a look at the list, and then I'm going to ask you a question on the quiz. Which ones are forms of assessment? Hopefully you got it right. All of them are forms of assessment. Every last one is a form of assessment. I'm just asking to check student knowledge, and any of these will be a way to check students' knowledge. But what's the difference between formative and summative? Formative assessment is done in the midst of teaching. I can still modify my teaching based on the responses that students give. Summative assessment is done at the end of the teaching. I can no longer teach. I can no longer modify. It is summing up. Did they get everything? And it is done at the end. So that is the major difference between formative and summative. Formative is done and I can still modify my teaching. It's done in the midst of instruction. Summative is done at the end of instruction. So I could use any of these as a form of assessment. When you look up or you Google formative assessment, you won't find a lot of ideas. But if you put in the same thing, checking for understanding, you will find a ton of ideas that come up. So realize checking for understanding is just another way to do formative assessment. If you're unfamiliar with any of these, I would suggest looking them up online to find more about them. But there are tons of ways to check for understanding, and I even put some examples in the module under the activities, like I think 100 ways to check for understanding. I also put a video in there on formative assessment. So take some time and watch it. It's like 2 minutes and 30 seconds. But it shows teachers using all these different types of formative assessment and then how they modify their instruction based on the feedback that they got from the students in the formative assessment. It's very interesting. And as always, you can always reach out to me if you have questions, post them on the discussion board. You can come to the office hours or you can email me. So I hope you're well, and I will talk to you next time. Take care.